Tell me about this service you're offering, this hybrid service. You're offering a low-cost airline with lots of high-tech amenities. How is that sustainable, Richard?
Well, I don't think you should ever be low tech. I think if you ever start a new business, you've got to be the very best in your field. You've got to be, if you're going to start a domestic airline, it's got to be the best airline flying by far. It's got to be, if you say take America, it's got to be twice as good as JetBlue, and it's got to be 1,000 times better than the rest. So, so we every single little thing, we have a clean sheet of paper. We make sure that we've got brand new planes. We make sure that all the experience we've had in 25 years of running Virgin Atlantic and running, Virgin Blue in Australia is put to bear on it. So we can make sure that the seats are absolutely the most comfortable. We make sure that the cabin crew dress in an outfit that they actually enjoy dressing in. So we involve them and think decisions like that. Entertainment, obviously, I'm signed the Rolling Stones. Sadly, I even signed the Sex Pistols. But anyway, we know how to entertain people. So we make sure that we've got the best entertainment system anywhere in the world on our planes. And as a busy person, I know it's important to be able to plug in my computers. I know it's important to be able to use the internet when I'm flying on a plane. And even tomorrow morning, we're going to broadcast a live TV show from one of our planes to CBS. We try to be technologically very advanced as well.
How are your companies doing in this economic downturn? It's sort of counterintuitive to launch a brand new airline in the middle of this seemingly never-ending recession. But if anybody can do it, we all believe Richard Branson can. What is the formula to approach that in what is obviously an extremely challenging time?
Well, there's no question it's the most challenging time that I've seen in my lifetime. And I think if governments hadn't moved quickly to save the banks, and actually I think they should have saved Lehman's, we would have definitely been in a 1929 depression. And I think we've only just avoided that. Having said that, I think those companies that are in a position to expand out of the recession should be doing so. Obviously, they've got aspects of those companies have got to be responsible, and maybe they've got to not expand quite as quickly as they would otherwise have done. But this week, I was in Seattle, picked up a brand new 777 to and launch a new airline called V Australia, which will start competing with United and Qantas across the Pacific. And obviously today we're launching services to Los Angeles and services to San Francisco with Virgin America. And that's creating a lot of new jobs at a time when obviously people are grateful to have jobs created. And in some ways it's a great time to be expanding because the cost of buying new planes is very cheap. The cost of fuel is now quite cheap. And so great fortunes can be made in times of recessions. I mean, it's not easy, but everything is half the price it was a few months ago. And so, if you can, if you've got a bit of money, there are certainly fortunes to be made.
Let's talk about one of the companies that is headquartered right here in Massachusetts, that began here in Massachusetts, that now is named Virgin Money, the company your company purchased. What was the attraction of that small venture that you wanted to get involved in that spoke to the Richard Branson formula, if you will?
Well, basically, it went back to when I was trying to get going in business, and I wanted to build a recording studio and had the idea of a countryside recording studio where bands could come and relax.
You went to your aunt for a loan, didn't you?
And the banks were willing to do a first mortgage, but I didn't have any money, so I needed another $6,000 for a second mortgage on the house. And and did a proper agreement with my aunt where, a second mortgage, I'd pay interest rates, which was slightly above what she was getting from the bank, and agree to pay her back within 5 years. And it worked a treat. It meant that, as a result, we discovered Mike Oldfield and Tubular Bells, and the whole Virgin empire started growing, just based on my aunt being able to give me $6,000. She made a bit more money than she would have made otherwise in the bank. She had reasonable security, and she wanted to help a relative as well. So Virgin Money is simply a way of trying to help families lend to each other, and in either to get small businesses going, or maybe to buy their first house at a time when the housing market's at an all-time low, and so it's that's really the concept. And right now, I think where banks are not lending, Virgin Money is doing particularly well.
And is the company growing? Is it operating mostly here in the United States, or is it international now?
Yeah, no, this company is based in Boston, and it's not international. We're sort of experimenting with it in the States, and I'm sure one day it'll be all over the world.
You have spent your career looking at how traditional businesses are structured and then finding out how you can operate successfully when they sometimes don't succeed. Tell me, in your opinion, well, that thing took off on you, didn't it? Tell me, if you will, what do you think are some of the largest mistakes, the biggest mistakes your major competitors are making in this challenging economy?
Well, I mean, interestingly, it's the very big companies that are in serious trouble, and I've never thought that big is beautiful, and today I definitely don't think big is beautiful. People love, chairmen love to be sitting on, being able to say, I'm sitting on a company, I've got 100,000 employees, I've got 200,000 employees, I've got 1 million employees, I've got this sort of turnover. And then when one thing goes wrong, where they haven't protected the downside in one area, the whole caboodle can come crashing down. At Virgin, we have set up our companies very differently. We have 400 separately standalone companies. All of those companies are relatively small. They all have people with stakes in those companies. And in fact, if any company gets a little bit too big, I will say maybe over 100 people, I will go in and say, I'd like to see the deputy managing director, the deputy sales manager, the deputy marketing manager, and I will then tell them, you are now the managing director, the sales manager, the marketing manager of a brand new company. And we split the company in two, and we send them off and find another building, and they build a new company. And so all of them feel intimate. They feel they can feel their success, they can feel their failures, they can be proud of them, they know each other all by name. And if, God forbid, somebody went and ran off with all the money, it's only of one company out of the 400 companies, so it's not going to bring the whole Virgin Empire crashing down. And so I think that may be one way for people to consider building their group of companies differently than it's been done in the past.
So the Virgin name, is it a sort of branded venture capital empire that you seed these companies to then carry out your name, your vision in separate areas?
Yes, to an extent it is. But unlike a venture capital company who invest in companies, a lot of different companies and a lot of different sectors, and if something goes wrong, they just let it go bust, and because we've got the Virgin brand on it, we have to zealously protect that brand. In fact, we've never let a company go bust, even although on occasions we would have quite liked to have done, because your reputation's everything. And anybody that runs a company with the Virgin brand on it has to realize that we're trying to build the most respected brand in the world. the best brand in the world, and they mustn't let the rest of the Virgin companies that are using that brand down. So every decision they make must be, will the passenger, will the consumer, like this decision? Is it going to enhance the brand? Is it going to offer great value to the consumer? Is the consumer going to go away and talk about it and tell their friends about it? And just to try not to do anything that damages the brand. I mean, we don't mind people taking risks, and we don't mind people falling flat on their faces, and we don't believe the consumer minds that, as long as you try things. But whatever happens, you must never ever take the consumer for a ride.
I want to remind everybody that we are live on the internet as well. We are talking to Richard Branson from Boston, Massachusetts, and I wanted to turn the conversation to your popularity. You've been part of our life, Richard, for decades. We've known you. We've seen you challenge yourself and challenge the elements. In a recent poll, I understand, among British school children, when they were looking for the role models that they would model their lives after, you rated higher than Jesus. There may be a time that you must answer for that. Tell me about that. What sort of responsibility does that carry for you?
Well, first of all, I don't take polls too seriously, and I hope other people don't either. Look, I think anybody in life who gets into a position of responsibility, a position where they're perhaps well known, a position of wealth, an enormous responsibility goes with that. I mean, for instance, if you take capitalism is a system that, up until this year, everybody thought basically worked. But I think even despite this year, fundamentally it's the only system that works. But the problem with capitalism is extreme wealth does go to a few individuals, and therefore an extreme responsibility goes to those individuals as well. And the responsibility to utilize that wealth constructively, whether it's employing new people, in setting up new businesses which improve people's lives, or using your entrepreneurial skills to tackle some of the more intractable problems of the world. And I think in the second half of my life, I'm spending more time now looking at some of the social problems of the world and seeing if I can use the skills I've learned to build businesses in actually going out and addressing some of those issues.